There are a lot of blue Pokemon. However, most of them have a similar weakness. Can these awesome designs make up for it and allow us to beat Scarlet, though? Especially if we had a load of hard rules on there, too. We meet the stars, and we've got a beautiful blue duck. Obviously, that's the one we're gonna pick up. Going a bit further, we can find one more blue Pokemon, being Azurill, so obviously we're going to catch it. A little further, we get straight into a Nemona fight. Obviously, Herford Coco being weak to us, we're gonna take it down fairly quickly. That Portme is a little bit troublesome, though, especially because it terastallizes. Lucky for us, Aqua Jet does over half health, and the following Thundershock isn't enough to take us out. This will mean the battle will end up being free. Azurill gets ready to evolve into a Marill very quickly, and that's going to lead us right into the first gym challenge, being against Katie and her bug types. We're going to lead off with Marill as she leads off with Nimble. We're then going to roll out, not doing too much, as they hit us with a struggle bug. Again, not exactly damaging. The turn will repeat, but obviously we're doing more damage at this point. And then finally, Nimble is going to go down here. Next up, she's going to send out her Tarantula, who just manages to tank the rollout. Its bug bite doesn't do much to us. This isn't great, so that means we've got to use our last rollout, taking it out. Daddy Ursa's gonna come out, it's gonna terastallize, and we're going to use Bounce, making it miss its attack. We're gonna connect and thankfully do some decent damage. However, Fury Cutter is gonna knock us quite heavily. If we bounce up again, that makes the Fury Cutter miss, so at least the damage isn't stacking on it. But the following turn will knock them down to half, and unfortunately, we will be knocked low enough where the next one could take us out. Obviously, we don't want that, so what we're gonna do is switch out into Falco, but Falco gets hit very heavily themselves. Fortunately, we don't have a choice. Falco needs to go for a wing attack. It's time to say sayonara. Oh my god, it missed his attack. Beautiful. This means we're going to go from almost losing a Pokemon to actually being able to beat this first gym deathless. However, that was incredibly close. Almost as close as you are to that subscribe button, so obviously you should hit it. Then gonna go and grab our next encounter, and that's gonna be a Gibble. Although it does almost take Marill out, we do manage to catch it without losing them. But the catching's not over there. We're gonna run into a Shinx, and obviously we're gonna catch that also. Waxley wants to show off in front of its new teammates, so it's gonna evolve into Quaxwell, and we're gonna get right on into the Clorf battle. Luckily, we started to encounter this while it's raining. Quaxwell's Aqua Jet is gonna go right on into it, almost taking it out with the help of a crit. This will activate its Anger Shell, giving it stat boosts. However, its Vice Grip isn't enough to take us out. And obviously, we know Aqua Jet, so we are faster and we'll take it out on the next turn. Now, you might think that crit really mattered, but even when we go against it with Arven, honestly, it's incredibly easy. We barely lose any of our health by the time we take it out. Clorf just isn't brilliant. Shinx is now at the point where it's ready to evolve, and that's going to lead us right on in to the Brassius battle. We're going to lead Quaxwell as he leads Petlil. Obviously, we're going to use Wing Attack, but it doesn't quite take it out as a Mega Drain does good damage. On the next turn, though, it will go down. We Wing Attack into the Smoliv, but unfortunately, we don't take that out either, and it's going to hit us with a Razor Leaf, doing major damage to us. I don't like this, and I don't feel safe, so here, we're going to switch on into Marill, and Razor Leaf does pretty good damage to them as well. Lucky for us, having that speed advantage, one bounce is all we need, and we will take it out here. Next up comes out his ace, Sudowoodo, obviously terastallizing into the grass type. We're going to start off by using a Charm, and they're going to use a Rock Throw against us, doing decent damage. We're then going to Charm again, knocking it to -4 as it switches to Trailblaze. And we just hold on one health. Knowing we can't stay in again, what we're going to do is switch on out into Gibble. Trailblaze does hit decently, but obviously it's neutral. We're then going to Terastallize to lose that ground typing, and the Trailblaze hits us for only 5 health as we set up a Sand Tomb. This doesn't do much damage, but the residual will matter. We're then going to get Rock Throwed as we retaliate with a Dragon's Breath. The exact same thing happens again. However, that plus the Sand Tomb damage has knocked it pretty low. It uses another rock throw, knocking us into the red as we Dragon's Breath, leaving it on a slither and finally getting the paralysis. However, it doesn't matter because Sand Tomb finishes it off. Right after this battle, Marill is going to evolve into Azumarill. And then we can go and get ourselves another team member, being Fanfi. All of that's going to lead us onto the next Titan, being Bombirdier. It starts off by wing attacking into our Shinx as we almost take it out with a Spark. This turn, it does the right thing and switches to Rock Throw, doing a lot of damage. However, it's too little, too late. Obviously, we've taken first stage down, but we don't have time for healing and got to go right on into the second stage. The first thing we're going to do is switch out into Azumarill as Bombirdier uses a wing attack into Nacli. Nacli also rock throws to do some decent damage. Bombirdier tries a rock throw but misses, allowing Azumarill to get off a charm as Nacli uses Smackdown. It's then going to pluck into us, not doing much, as we hit with a rollout. Nacli's gonna use Smackdown, knocking it into the red, and then it's gonna use Pluck into Azumarill, but obviously the rollout is gonna finally take it out here. That was nice and easy, almost as easy as getting our next encounter being Swablu and catching that. And after that catch, it's gonna lead us to the first team star member being Giacomo and their dark types. We're going to lead with Quaxwell, and the first thing we're going to do is use a low sweep, 4 times super effective, so obviously it'll go down. Then straight away, out comes Revroom. It gets an Intimidate, knocking our attack down, which sucks. And then its Wicked Talk actually does decent damage to us. Our low kick doesn't do terrible damage and lowers its speed, but still less than I'd like. Luckily, on the next turn, it's gonna miss a Metal Sound and our low sweep hits again. Wicked Talk is gonna come our way and knock us into being one-shot. However, at least we've got about a third of the health down at this point. Knowing we can't stay in, what we're gonna do is switch out into Azumarill because Wicked Talk won't touch them. Azumarill will get Metal Sounded, lowering its defense. However, we'll get off a charm to lower their attack. We're then going to switch into Fanfa here, who doesn't take too much damage on the switch in. However, this is where I make a mistake. I was supposed to click on another move, and unfortunately, I clicked on Rollout. That seals us in, meaning we can't select moves or can't make any choices until it's done. And although we do get a couple turns in, unfortunately, it's going to end with Fanfi's demise. From there, we're going to switch into Swablu, who will get hit with a Metal Sound, but at least the disarming voice is super effective. From there, what we'll do is switch out again and come into Azumarill. Azumarill gets hit with a Swift as we hit back with the Bubble Beam, doing okay damage. This carries on for a few turns until we're low and the Starmobile is in red health. I want to lose another team member though, so we're going to switch out into Luxio. They will get Metal Sounded, but they can retaliate with a Spark, doing decent damage. From there, we're going to switch into Gibble, who takes a decent chunk on the switch in. It then gets Metal Sounded on the next turn as it can retaliate with a Bulldoze. However, the Starmobile just holds on. We don't have a safe switch in, so we've just got to hope we can tank an attack. Thankfully, we can, and one more Bulldoze is going to finish the battle. That little bit of damage Fanfi got off truly was game-changing, as all of my Pokemon were at risk of being taken out at the end there. From there, we can run into another encounter, being an East Sea Shellos, which is thankfully blue as opposed to pink. The current team, however, they're a little bit weak to electric, aren't they? So let's get right on into the electric gym battle. We're gonna lead with Luxio as she leads with Wattrel. Obviously, the Spark she's using against us, we resist, but its flying type makes it neutral, so ours does far more damage. It only ends up taking us 3 turns in order to get rid of this little bird. However, then she's gonna switch into Luxio and get an Intimidate off against us. It's gonna bite us, doing pretty heavy damage as we retaliate, doing the same. Not wanting to stay in here though, we're gonna switch out and go into Azumarill. Azumarill's then gonna get hit with a Spark, which unfortunately crits, knocking it incredibly low, and the Bubble Beam it used only knocks them to half. Knowing we can't survive, we're gonna switch out and go into Gibble, who won't be affected by the Spark. Gibble then gets bit into, and it's gonna cause it to flinch, of course it is. Next turn, we take more damage than we need to, and Bulldoze finishing it off but we're incredibly low for the incoming belly bolt. Knowing a water gun's coming, what we're going to do is switch into a Azumarill. Azumarill's then going to use Charm to lower the belly bolt's attack. However, we're in a risky situation and we survived on 1 HP. Therefore, we've just got to use another Charm and go down here. It's sad, but unfortunately, the flinch and the crit from before really have added up to give us bad luck. From here, we're going to switch into Luxio. I use a bite in the hopes that we'll get a flinch. Unfortunately, we don't, and Water Gun does decent damage to us. I was then expecting it to switch to Spark, so we're going to switch into Gibble. Unfortunately, Water Guns and leaves us on 1 HP. From there, we're going to have to switch into Quaxwell, who takes the Water Gun beautifully. We're then going to use Work Up to raise our attack and special attack. However, the Spark coming in does decent damage. We're going to do the exact same thing as last turn in order to beat this thing. And from there, what we're going to do is we're going to Terrastallize in order to have that extra damage so our Aqua Cutter can come out and take it out. That was close, but luckily for us, Miss Magius is all that's left. And for those of you who don't know, if you have a ground and a normal type, Miss Magius is free. You switch between the two until it runs out of PP in both of its attacking moves, and then literally any Pokemon can come in, and the only thing you're susceptible to is confusion. Obviously, with this strategy, we managed to waste all of her moves and then attack right on into her with Quaxwell for the win. Never mind, Quaxwell hit itself. Right, let's go for it. It hit itself again? Are you joking me? It's all getting chanced on this. The last turn. Oh, we snapped our confusion. Thank God. Aqua Cutter is gonna knock it very low here. And now we can use an Aqua Jet to outspeed and finish it off, not risking getting damaged again. That almost became a double loss though. From here, Gibble is now ready to evolve into a Gabite. Then we're gonna take on Team Star's Mela. However, Mela really can't do anything if you've got water types and Rain Dance. The Rain Dance means that all of her attacks do next to nothing against you, and it ups the surf you're going to be using. Even though it took me 2 water type Pokemon, obviously we weren't going to struggle here. From there, we can get another encounter, being a Riolu, which is a beautiful catch, by the way. We need to give it a few washes, and then once you've done that, it's ready to evolve into Lucario. Lucario just so happens to be the perfect counter to the next Titan being Orthworm. This is due to the fact Aura Sphere is special and annihilates it. Going on from here, Luxio is ready to evolve into a Luxray, and Shellos doesn't want to be left behind, so it evolves itself into a Gastrodon. And then it's almost perfect timing for us to get into the next gym battle, being against Kofu. The first thing we're gonna do with our newly acquired Luxray is to Terrastallize, get hit pitifully with a Pluck, and react by beating the loser with a Spark. Luxio is gonna come out next, and it's gonna headbutt into us, but it doesn't flinch, allowing us to Spark and damage it. However, its gooey ability goes off, which is going to lower our speed. Electric Pokemon are inherently fast though, so we let Crabominable Terrastallize, and then it crab hammers into us. Oh, I didn't bother to check the speeds. I honestly thought we'd be far faster than it. Oh, it one-shot us as well. Oh, no, what do we do here? That's definitely my bad, but that could have been avoided. 100%. We're going to switch into Lucario, who can at least get an Aura Sphere off doing decent damage. But Crab Hammer hits into that, almost knocking it out also. Luckily, it's getting damaged by the Sandstorm. We're then going to switch into Falco, who thankfully the Crab Hammer misses on the switch in. We can low sweep doing decent damage and get slammed, obviously not doing over half, so we're safe. The next low sweep knocks it incredibly low. However, what's going to happen is it's going to miss its slam. Not that it would have KO'd us, but it's nice. And the Sandstorm finishes it off here. Jesus Christ, that could have been a slaughter very quickly if we aren't careful. We need to replace some of our fallen comrades, so let us get another encounter, being a Bronzor. Luckily for us as well, the level cap is just high enough for it to evolve. Now, we're going to have to take on Atticus and his poison types, but just in case you're wondering, the only move he can hit us with is Sucker Punch. This means it's free to set up no matter what you do. Get your defense to the max with iron defenses and use Carmines in order to get specials up. Use stored power and it doesn't affect them. That's not good. Right, okay, maybe you just don't use stored power. You use 4 gyro balls, that gets rid of Stunk Tank, and then what you do is just start spamming stored power because it's enough to take the rest of them out because none of them have a dark type from here, so we're safe. Thank God we didn't replace gyro ball though. Swablu is now finally ready to evolve and become an Altaria, and Quaxwell, not one to be left behind, is gonna do the exact same thing also. All of that is gonna lead us to the next gym challenge, which is gonna be against Larry. He leads Kamala as we lead Lucario, but it's fine because we can just Aura Sphere the gym. Kamala somehow survives. Oh my god, I am terrible at this game. On top of that, the slam does decent damage. However, at least the next Aura Sphere will take it down. And we have some recovery thanks to the leftovers we use. The Dunsparce, however, knows Drill Run, so we're not staying in. We're going to switch into Emu, who obviously gets hit with a glare. Why did he use Drill Run? He's then going to Hyper Drill us as we get stuck in full paralysis. Next turn, he'll Hyper Drill us, and we can finally get Dragon Pulse off, but obviously we've lost a turn now. Then we're going to switch into Bronzong, because obviously it resists having the Steel typing. The very first turn, the Hyper Drill, however, is going to crit us. Yep, that means we can no longer stay in as long as we need, so we only managed to get 2 gyro balls off, being low enough before we need to switch out. And on the switch out, he calls it as well. He knew Lucario was coming in, so glared. Jesus Christ. Now we're slower, we obviously can't be staying in here, so we're just gonna have to switch out into Gastrodon, who of course gets crit on the switch in also. It then gets hit with a glare and can retaliate with a Slurf, knocking it into the red. From here, it's gonna get hit again, but thankfully our Surf does go through and take it out. Then last up is going to be the Staraptor. First thing we're gonna do though is switch into Lucario again. Obviously Facade does more damage than I was expecting. It then hits us with an Aerial Ace, knocking us to just 4 HP, but we hit through and Aura Sphere it. If we're faster, this would be game over, but we're not. Safest move to make is going to be to switch into Gabite here. This is because Gabite will get hit with the Aerial Ace, and then we can switch right on into Quaquaval, knowing that it will now be Facade, so we won't be taken out. Now, all of my Pokemon are slower, but Quaquaval has Aqua Jet, and it is just low enough health where this will take it out. What I was expecting to be one of the easiest gyms, I just got hit with the incredibly bad luck of RNG, and we almost lost our team there. And as if that wasn't enough, Nemona doesn't want to give us any breathing room, so we've got to battle her straight away. Lycanroc uses Bite, which doesn't do too much to us, and we can retaliate with Aura Sphere, wiping it out. Formo comes out next, and expecting it to use an Arm Thrust, we're gonna switch out into Altaria. Was using Thunder Wave though. Wonderful. It's then gonna use a Spark against us as we hit a Dragon Pulse pretty heavily. Obviously, this will end up with the Formo going down on the next turn and Goomy coming out. Goomy's Dragon Pulse is going to do some major damage to us, but ours knocks it to similar health as what we're on. From here, we're going to switch into Quaquaval, who doesn't get damaged too much, and can then hit it with a low sweep, taking it out. Skeledirge is up next, obviously terrestrializes into the fire, but we're going to use our Aqua Step to do some major damage to it. Torch Song, even though it's resisted, does awesome damage to us. However, we're faster. That means we get the next turn and obviously take it out here. And to be honest, there's not too much to do between now and the next bit, so let us just get right on into the Rhyme battle. Unfortunately for us, she's gonna start out by Shadow Sneaking with both her Pokemon into Lucario, doing some pretty major damage. We can then Dark Pulse the Banette and then Aqua Step using Falco, taking Banette out. Now we've taken a couple of her Pokemon out, Rhyme's Crowd is gonna boost us. Mimikyu is then going to Shadow Sneak into Lucario again. However, Quaquaval can Aqua Step, breaking the Sturdy, and then Lucario can hit it with a Melclaw, finishing it off. Houndstone's on the sidelines though and comes roaring in with a Play Rough, doing awesome damage to Quaquaval. Then what we're going to do is we're going to Terrestrialize into the Water type, and Rhyme's going to Terrestrialize her Toxtricity into a Ghost type. Aqua Step is going to hit on into Toxtricity and manage to take it out. And this means Lucario can use a Dark Pulse onto the Houndstone and finish that off also. Since they were similar, let's just show you the harder bit of the Great Tusk battle. It's gonna Rapid Spin into Scovillain, raising its speed, but Scovillain gets rid of that by using Scary Face. We're then gonna Water Pulse and knocking it about a quarter. On top of that, we also get the Confusion off on it. Scovillain will then hit it pretty heavily with a Razor Leaf, and it ends up hitting itself in Confusion as our Water Pulse knocks it low. The next Razor Leaf won't quite take it out, allowing it to use another Rapid Spin, but unfortunately it's too little too late, and the Water Pulse will finish it off here. Mackie here, what are you doing up there? That's the ceiling. Get out of there, dude. We're gonna run into another encounter, and that's going to be a Dino. Gets a lot more blue when it evolves, thankfully. That's then gonna lead us into the next battle against Nemona. She starts off by sand attacking us and making us miss our Metal Claw. In fact, we actually end up missing a grand total of 4 Metal Claws. Knowing I don't want to stay in any longer because I can't hit it, we're gonna switch out. Gastrodon ends up tanking the crunch very decently. The next one is gonna knock us into the yellow, but now we can use Surf and finish Lycanroc off. From there, she's going to switch out into Sliggoo, so I decide we want to bring Quaquaval out. Does get hit pretty hard, but it's not the end of the world. We're then going to use a Workup as Dragon Pulse gets hit into us pretty heavily. Then we can Terrastallize, and an Aqua Step is enough to take Sliggoo out here. Luckily, the Aqua Step raised our speed, therefore when the Pawmot comes out, we can Aqua Step that and finish it off as well. Then out comes her last Pokemon, being Skeledirge. At this stage, we have a 56% chance of taking it out. I decide we're going to gamble with them odds and attack with the Aqua Step, and it does hit through, thankfully finishing Skeledirge off. That is going to end up leading us into the next battle, being against Tulip and her Psychic types. Wheelie Lucario, and Lucario is going to use an Iron Defense as Farigiraf goes for a Reflect. We can use another one as they Zen Headbutt into us, but our leftovers almost gets us back to full health. From here, we can Calm Mind, and Zen Headbutt isn't doing too much. We'll get off a second one, and unfortunately, the coming in Zen Headbutt ends up getting a crit, meaning them leftovers are literally all that made us survive here. I wanted to get to at least +4, but unfortunately, we can't now. Therefore, we've got to attack with a Dark Pulse and thankfully take it out. Gardevoir's gonna come out next, and luckily a Flash Cannon is super effective against that, so we'll finish it off. Next up out is a Spathra though, and I was thinking this thing was slower than it is. It outspeeds and goes for Psychic, taking Lucario of all Pokemon down. Literally our best Pokemon has gone down here. This sucks. I decide the only way we can get past this is going out with Quaquaval, Terrastallizing into our Water type, and then using a Workup as we get hit with a Psychic. Forgetting the stat raises are copied by a Spathra. This is really bad. This means I have a 90% chance of surviving here against the Psychic. She goes for it, and we just hold on, thank God. This means Aqua Step can hit and obviously end up taking it out. And then last up is Florges, but it has pretty atrocious defense. One-shotting that thing was brilliant though. We've lost Lucario and we needed payback on Tulip, so that was the right way to do it. Gabite is now ready to reach its final form, being Garchomp. But that's going to end up leading us into the final gym battle, being Grusha and his ice types. Frostmoth is going to start out by using a Tailwind, as we're going to set up an Iron defense. From here, Bug Buzz is doing amazing damage, but now we can Gyro Ball and one-shot it. Next up is Beartic, who's going to use Icicle Crash, and we can hit it with a Gyro Ball, almost taking it out. It then Icicle Crashes again, but this time it flinches, which sucks because Tailwind also peters out here. This means the next turn, when we hit it with Gyro Ball, it's just not enough to take it out. And then to make matters worse, the next Icicle Crash is going to flinch us, and now we can't take another. From here, we're going to switch out into Quaquaval, who doesn't take too much damage on the switch-in, and an Aqua Jet is more than enough to get rid of Beartic. So Titan is then going to come out, and we're going to use a low sweep against it. However, it's going to Icicle Spinner into us. Luckily, we did a lot more damage than it did, so all we need to do is use one more and take it out. Then we've got his Altaria to deal with. Both of us decide to terrestrialize, us into water and him into ice. We then low sweep doing some awesome damage, and it misses a hurricane. Not that it killed us, now we've lost our fighting type, but still, beautiful to see. With this Altaria just sat there, all we need to do is low sweep one more time, and that will gain us the final gym badge. With that, it's time to hunt down another team member in the swamp, being Krogunk. Obviously, it's an easy catch for us. And the first thing we're going to do with this little bugger is evolve it into Toxicroak. With our team now ready, we can move on to the next battle, being against Ortega and their fairy types. Azumarill hits us right out the back with an Aqua Tail, doing decent damage as we set up a Reflect. Thankfully, Leftovers giving us some health back. It then switches methods and goes for a Charm, which is fine because we wanted to go for an Iron Defense. From here, its Aqua Tail does next to nothing. However, I want some more defense, so let's do it again. Now it's doing full damage. I go for a Flash Cannon to gauge how much we're gonna do. We do avoid the next attack, allowing us to set up a Carmine for free. But this is where our Reflect will end. It hits us again, knocking us to 69 HP. Quite nice, but we're going to set up a Reflect. Since it's not doing too much to us, we're then going to use 2 more Flash Cannons, and that will finish Azumarill off and bait in Dash Bun. On the Dash Bun, we're going to terrestrialize into Pure Steel as it goes for a crunch against us, obviously not doing much damage now, and allowing us to Flash Cannon it out of here. We then get to Wigglytuff, and even with crits, this thing really cannot do much to us. So although it does get paralysis on the Body Slam, we're going to get to maxed out with our Carmines. Once we're there, we can hit it with a Flash Cannon, do some awesome damage, and take it out. Then next out is his Reverum, but this thing also cannot touch us. It only knows Fairy and Steel moves, so they barely damage us, allowing us to Flash Cannon and finish it off. And then before we take on the next Team Star member, let us get a fighting type ourselves, being Heracross. Now that we've got Heracross, let us move right on into the next Team Star battle against Eri. We're going to lead Quaquaval. Their Toxicroak is going to Poison Jab into us as we use a workup to set up our attack and special attack. They then Poison Jab us again, which unfortunately is going to poison. However, we've got a berry to at least heal some of the health back. That means when we use Aqua Step, it goes down. Now that we've got no berry, when Persimmon comes out and Acrobikes is all we need to take it out, Annihilate is gonna follow the exact same fate, being weak to the move. Then I'm on just 3 health for Lucario, but what we're gonna do is terrestrialize and Aqua Step into the Lucario to take it out. This is because when the Reverum comes out, it doesn't actually end up doing that poison tick. However, next turn, we are going to go down if we're not careful. So what we're going to do is switch into Altaria. Obviously, the high horsepower that we're going to use doesn't affect us. Then on the next turn, they spin out, not doing too much damage as we retaliate with a Moonblast. We're now faster, so our Moonblast will knock it under half health as it uses another spin out. We Moonblast again, but this time they're getting serious and decide to set up a Shift Gear. However, it's too little too late. We're still faster, and one more Moonblast is all we need to take her out. Bit unlucky with the poison, but our team is very good against hers. This obviously leads us right on into the final Titan battle, being against Dondozo. We're going to start off using a low kick and not doing too much damage as Dondozo tries to Aqua Tail us, but our Water Absorb stops it. From there, Greedent's going to use a Leer to lower its defense. We're going to low kick again as it water pulses into Greedent, but Greedent is going to hit it with a takedown. From there, we've got one more turn. We're going to low kick it, knocking it into the red as it body slams into us. However, not that that matters as Greedent is going to use a takedown and finish the job. It's not over yet though. We still have to deal with Tatsugiri. Turn 1, we're going to Toxic Kick. And then it's going to use an Icy Wind in order to slow us both down as Greedent uses a takedown. Now it's faster, it'll hit us with the Icy Wind first. However, we're going to use a Nasty Plot here. Greedent's on the offensive, so hits into it again. Then Tatsugiri tries to Muddy Water, which gives us health back, and Greedent survives it on 1 HP, allowing us to Sludge Bomb into it. Unfortunately, Greedent is going to miss here. It's then going to go for a taunt against Greedon, allowing us to get another Sludge Bomb off, and it would have been the end, but unfortunately he misses again. However, it's too late now. The next turn is going to taunt into us, and that allows us to get off one more Sludge Bomb and finish it off. I thought I might need to switch about a bit, but honestly, this was so easy. That being done, it is going to open us to get a Bluefish of our own. Obviously, we call this behemoth Dory, and all of that is going to lead us on to the start of the Elite Four. We're gonna get right on into the first battle against Rika and his ground types. We're gonna lead Dondozo, who is gonna get hit pretty heavily with an Earth Power. However, we're gonna use an Aqua Tail. Because Aqua Tail didn't do too much, we're gonna Terrasilize on the next turn, take a lot of damage from the Earth Power, and then finish Whiscash off. Next up is his Donphan, which hits us pretty heavily with an Earthquake as we use another Aqua Tail, knocking it to the red. We can't afford to stay in here though, so what we're gonna do is switch into Quaquaval, who tanks an Earthquake fairly decently. It can then use an Aqua Step, which is going to finish Donphan off and raise its speed. Since Dugtrio's fairly frail and slower now, we obviously one-shot that. Camerupt being 4 times weak to us, and Aqua Step is more than enough to deal with it. Then out is gonna come Clodsire, who Terrasilises into the ground type. I forget that it has Water Absorb and try to Aqua Step into it, so I do nothing as it can get off a Toxic. Knowing I'm not gonna survive much here, we're gonna switch out and we switch into Garchomp, who tanks the Earthquake all right. Garchomp can then Dragon Claw into Clodsire, doing more than half health as another Earthquake knocks us low. However, since Garchomp did more than half health, all we need to do is use one more Dragon Claw. And it must have been a high and a low roll. It just survived an Earthquake and finish Garchomp off here. The first time we get to use it and we've lost it. No, literally one of the best Pokemon in the game, and we lost it to a Clodsire of all things. That's despicable. From here, at least, we can bring Quaquaval back in, and although Clodsire stalls with the Protect, it doesn't stop the Ice Spinner from eventually hitting it and finishing it off. Didn't expect to lose anyone to Rika of all people, but with all of that done, let us get into the next Elite Four battle, being Poppy and her Steel types. We're going to start off with Heracross, who uses an Iron defense as Copperaja is going to Stealth Rock. Then we're gonna Iron defense again, but this time get hit pretty heavily with a Play Rough. From there, we Terrasilize, obviously losing that fighting type, meaning we can Sword Stance up our attack and we don't get too much damage from the Play Rough. We're gonna Sword Stance again, and this time we're gonna get hit with a Heavy Slam, knocking us low. And since we can't survive another attack, we're gonna Arm Thrust here, taking it out. Next up is gonna be Corviknight. Now this thing would be a bit scary, but I decided to put the loaded dice onto Heracross. This guarantees 4 or 5 hits on the Arm Thrust we use, meaning Corviknight will go down no matter what. Then out is going to come the Magnezone, but it doesn't get sturdy if we use Arm Thrust, so bye-bye. Next up is Bronzong, but we thought about this. We taught Throat Chop, obviously super effective and gonna take it out. Then lastly is Tinkaton, but unfortunately this thing is faster than us, so we cannot stay in here. I figure the best thing to switch into is going to be Bronzong because it resists everything. Then she's going to Terrasilize and use a Gigaton Hammer against us. From there, she's going to Play Rough us, which does very little damage, and we can set up a Reflect, stopping her in her tracks. This means we can now switch out into Toxicroak on a Gigaton Hammer and we can be safe. But then the first turn we're in with Toxicroak, she's actually going to Brick Break. Although it doesn't do much damage for us, it gets rid of our Reflect. Luckily, the low kick we're using does decent damage. Knowing a Gigaton Hammer is coming our way, we're going to switch into Dondozo as it's the tankiest Pokemon, which really doesn't get hit heavy. On the next turn, it's going to get Play Roughed. It doesn't go down, and an Aqua Tail can come out and finish her off. Next up, we're going to have the return of Larry, this time sporting the Flying type. We're going to start off by using Aqua Step into the Tropius as they decide to set up a sunny day. Because of that speed boost, we're now faster, so can set up a Rain Dance, meaning they need to charge the Solar Beam. On the next turn, we're going to Sword Stance to raise our attack as Solar Beam hits us for decent damage. We can then Sword Stance again because we know it's going to use a Sunny Day. And of course, we rub salt in the wound, use Rain Dance again to make sure that it doesn't get an attack off on this turn. From here, we can Terrasilize and then use Aqua Step, which will finish Tropius off. And I equip the metronome item in order to raise our attack each turn. This means although we get intimidated from the Staraptor, when it comes to hitting it, especially in the rain, we one-shot it. Altaria also doesn't end up standing a chance, even with the resist. It might be because we got a crit, but either way, it wouldn't have taken us out. Oricorio might be an electric type, but it ain't got the speed on us, so we're gonna finish it off. And last up is Flamigo, but it's slower than us. It's not exactly the bulkiest of Pokemon, so I think you know exactly what happens here. 3 of the 4 down. Beautiful. From here, we are gonna go into the last Elite Four member, being Hassel and his Dragon types. As is with the last turn, we're going to Terrasilize right off the bat just in case an Air Slash was coming our way. It wasn't, it's Super Fangs, but then we're gonna Aqua Step into it to raise our speed. Knowing it can't KO us, we're gonna use a Sword Stance as it tries to Dragon Pulse and knocks us to the red. We can then use an Ice Spinner, and for extra damage, we equip a Black Belt, which raises our attack on super effective moves. Then, I wish anything else could be said, but Hassel just goes down here. All we need to do is keep on clicking the Icicle Spinner, and guess what? All of it is super effective against all of its Pokemon. Therefore, we win this battle. And now that we've got through the entirety of the Elite Four, there is one trainer left. It's going to be the champion that is Geeta. She's going to start off by using Lumina Crash into our Heracross, which almost takes it out. However, it doesn't do enough, allowing us to retaliate with Pin Missile, finishing it off. Go-Go will come out next, but unfortunately it's slower than us, therefore we can do the exact same thing as last turn, and that also goes down. After this, King Gambit is going to come out, but that thing's even slower, and we've got Arm Thrust just to rub it in. Then out comes Veluza, but luckily we've got just enough health where an Aqua Jet won't take us out. That means it's not going to go for it, so we can attack first and Pin Missile, finishing it off. Next up is going to be Avalugg, and we can't actually one-shot this, so we're going to switch out into Bronzong, who tanks an Avalanche beautifully. Avalugg is then going to hit it with a crazy heavy crunch, but we're going to retaliate by using a Flash Cannon, knocking it low. From here, we're going to switch into Toxicroak. The fighting type means the crunch does next to nothing against us. And since we're faster, we need to use one Sludge Bomb and finish this thing off. Last up is going to be her Glamora, but I know it's coming for an Earthquake, so I don't want to stay in. We switch on out into Dondozo, who obviously doesn't get hit very heavily. Dondozo then is going to get hit pretty severely by the Terra Blast, to the point it survives on just 4 HP, but it can get an Aqua Tail off, which is important as it knocks Glimora low. From here, we're gonna switch into Quaquaval. Obviously, the fighting type means the Rock Blast doesn't do much, but that poison is gonna stack up. We decide to Terrasilize to lose our fighting type as the Dazzling Gleam comes into us. Obviously, it can't finish us off, so one Aqua Step, and we have defeated Geeta. With Geeta down, it's gonna be straight on into the Clavel battle, though. We're gonna lead with Heracross, who's going to Pin Missile into the Oranguru, finishing it off. Next up is his Houndoom, but I know this thing's gonna Fire Blast, so we're gonna switch into Dondozo, but it misses anyway. It's then gonna use a Dark Pulse against us, doing decent damage, but we just need to use one Aqua Tail to take it out. Abomasnow is then gonna come out, and it's gonna start off by using Aurora Veil, but we decide to set up a Rain Dance. From here, we're going to switch out into Mystique, who takes a Wood Hammer beautifully. Then, unfortunately, Pin Missile is only going to hit 4 times, meaning that it can retaliate and hit us with the Blizzard quite heavily. Knowing Blizzard's coming our way, we're going to switch into Quaquaval, who can right off the bat use an Aqua Step, raising its speed and taking down the Abomasnow. Next up is going to be Gyarados, and that Intimidate makes it so we can't stay in, so we're going to have to switch out. We bring in Altaria, who isn't affected by the incoming Earthquake, and then we can Dragon Pulse into it, doing about a third as they Stone Edge and almost take us out. I don't want to stay in on a Stone Edge, so we're going to switch into Quaquaval, who tanks it beautifully. I can then use a Swords Dance as we get hit with an Earthquake quite heavily. Luckily, one Swords Dance is all we need to allow us to use an Ice Spinner and finish Gyarados off. Poltergeist gets cracked by the kicks that we're throwing in its face. And then last up, he is going to have Meowscarada. Unfortunately for Meowscarada though, Ice Spinner is more than enough to deal with it here, and we've won this battle. From here, we're finally going to get our Dino to evolve into a Zweilious. And obviously, Zweilious can instantly evolve into a Hydreigon. Hydreigon just so happens to be the perfect counter for Penny. All you need to do is set up a Dragon's Dance because the Umbreon can't touch you. Once that's set up, we can start nasty plotting to get our special attack through the roof. And then we Dragon Pulse into each and every one of her Pokemon, taking them out in one shot until we reach Sylveon. Sylveon might think it's cool by terrestrializing, but it's just that much more satisfactory when we Flash Cannon into it, wiping it off the face of the earth. Now, normally we would go into the Arven fight because we'd want to be as high leveled as possible for Nemona. However, I decide I don't want to do this because we have the perfect counter to her. Since Bronzong has Levitate and it's Steel type, the Lycanroc literally can't hit us. That means we're free to set up a load of Iron defenses, and then on top of that, a load of Carmines. Once that's done, we set up a Reflect for good measure, but to be honest, we didn't even need that. We've got Stored Power, which even though some of her Pokemon resist it, it wipes through every single last one of them. Bronzong, being slow, obviously gets hit by each and every Pokemon. However, it doesn't care. It's just going to retaliate back with all that stored power and wipe the floor with Nemona. What a beautiful Pokemon. Now, with that done, we can get onto the Arven fight, and I did actually have another strategy here. However, I forgot to switch the Bronzong out. So, we need to use that as we don't want to risk paralysis on any one of our other Pokemon. We use Substitute this time as well. However, what we're going to do is the exact same thing as before. Set up all our stats and stored power all the way until we hit Mabostiff. Obviously, we can't hit this though, so we're gonna have to switch out and we choose Heracross. This is because I was expecting a crunch, however, they called us. They end up using a Fire Fang on the switching, doing awesome damage. But it's fine, we're faster. We can terrestrialize ourselves to get the bug typing and then hit a Pin Missile. No, we missed. Well, goodbye. Oh my god, he missed as well. Oh my god, that's incredibly lucky. I mean, as I was saying, we easily take down the Mabostiff with a Pin Missile from here. And with that lucky encounter, guess what? Let us get on to Area 0 with all our Pokemon intact. There, we are going to run into AI Sada. Can we beat her or will we lose the run here? Quaquaval is going to outspeed and attack with an Acrobatics, one-shotting the Slitherwing. Next up is Screamtail, so we're going to terrestrialize to lose that fighting type, ensuring a play rough won't take us out here. Obviously, we're going for the Swords Dance as well. Then we get hit heavily with another play rough, but we're using an Aqua Step. However, they'll survive on a Sliver. Thanks to the speed boost though, that's not something we need to worry about because the next turn we can take it out since it can't hit us now. Bloodamane has literally zero defensive bulk, so obviously we one-shot it. Sandy Shocks would normally be a worry, but it's only got speed on its side and we've boosted ours, therefore it goes down. Brute Bonnet thinks it's bulky, but we've not got an item, so our Acrobatics does 110 base power. I think you know what happens there. Then, last up is her Roaring Moon. All we need to do here is use one Ice Spinner, and we've beaten her and this entire run. Well, that was fabulous. You know what would be fabulous though? If you click here, because YouTube wants you to watch this video next.